When stars' music go dark. Emergency session of the Galactic Council had been ongoing for 72 hours. Ambassador Kelix of the Corinth stood at the central podium, his 4 eyes scanning the assembled representatives from 19 different species. Once this chamber had held delegates from over 400 civilizations. Now only these few remained. The devourers have consumed the Tertian cluster. Kelix announced, his translator crystal pulsing with each word. That's 17 inhabited worlds, 3 billion souls. He paused, letting the weight settle over the chamber. At their current rate of expansion, the core worlds will fall within 6 months. After that, our united fleets cannot stop them. A murmur of despair rippled through the assembled delegates. The holographic display behind Kelix showed the inexorable crimson tide spreading across the galactic map. The devourers, a machine intelligence of unknown origin, had appeared at the rim worlds 5 years ago. Their ships consumed entire planets, breaking them down into raw materials to build more vessels. No communication had ever been established. No mercy had ever been shown. We have one option remaining, Kelix continued, manipulating the display. A small region of space marked in yellow and bordered by warning beacons appeared. Sector 231, the quarantine zone. The chamber erupted. Delegate throes of the Mentari slammed his crystalline appendages on his desk. You cannot be serious. The Accords of Unification forbid any contact with that region. The Accords assumed we would survive, Kelix replied grimly. We are beyond such luxuries now. High Counselor Ren, her scaled face, grave with age and wisdom, raised a hand for silence. Ambassador Kelric speaks of humanity, the species we exiled 1,200 years ago. The word humanity sent a chill through the assembly. Even the youngest delegates had been taught the histories. The humans had been one of the first species the expanding Galactic Council had encountered. They had been welcomed, their potential celebrated, but within 2 generations, everything had changed. Humans had a gift for warfare that terrified the peaceful species of the Council. When conflicts arose on the frontier, it was human ships that ended them quickly, brutally, efficiently. The Council had grown dependent on human military might, but that dependence spread fear. When humanity requested a seat on the High Council, citing their contributions to galactic security, that fear transformed into panic. The vote to quarantine humanity passed by a narrow margin. All human colonies outside their home system were evacuated. A barrier of automated defense stations was erected around their star system, set to destroy any ship attempting to leave. The humans were cut off from the galaxy, left with a single world, and told they could rejoin when they learned peace. But the Council had never lifted the quarantine. In truth, most had hoped humanity would simply fade away, contained in their isolated corner of space. The humans will have evolved beyond their warlike nature by now, Delegate Sarah of the Epsilon Collective argued. 12 centuries of isolation should have tempered them into philosophers and artists. What use would they be to us? Kelix manipulated the display again. A signal pattern appeared, strong, regular, emanating from within the quarantine zone. 3 days ago, our deep space monitoring stations detected this. It's a transmission repeating on old Council emergency frequencies. The translation is simple. We know we're ready. Let us help. Vin leaned forward, her ancient eyes studying the waveform they know about. The Devourers, how unknown, but if they've been monitoring outside communications, they would understand our situation. Kellex took a breath. I volunteer to lead a diplomatic ship into the quarantine zone. If humanity has something to offer, we cannot afford to refuse out of pride or ancient fear. The vote was closer than Kelleries expected. In the end, desperation won by just 7 votes. Within hours he was aboard the scout ship Luminous Path, approaching the quarantine barrier that had stood for over a millennium. The barrier's ancient weapons locked onto his ship immediately. Krex transmitted the Council override codes, praying they still function after all these centuries. For 10 agonizing seconds, targeting lasers painted his hull. Then, miraculously, the weapons powered down. The barrier opened. Kix's ship slipped through into the unknown. The quarantine zone was not empty. Long-range sensors detected dozens of installations, mining operations on asteroids, orbital habitats, massive shipyards orbiting distant moons. Human civilization had not stagnated in isolation. It had grown. Unidentified vessel. This is Earth Defense Command. A voice crackled over the communicator, speaking perfect galactic standard. You are cleared for approach vector to Station Bastion. Delegation is waiting. Carrick's hands trembled as he followed the coordinates. Station Bastion loomed ahead, a massive orbital platform bristling with weapons that made the quarantine barrier look primitive, but the weapons remained dormant as his ship was guided into a docking bay. The human delegation was small, just 3 individuals in dark military uniforms. The leader stepped forward, a woman with iron-gray hair tied back severely, eyes that had seen too much and bearing that commanded instant respect. Ambassador Kellex, she said, extending a hand in the ancient human gesture of greeting. I'm Captain Sarah Chin, commanding officer of the UHSV Indomitable. Welcome to humanity's last stronghold. Krix grasped her hand, finding her grip firm but not crushing. Captain Chin, your transmission said you were ready to help, but I must ask how. Do you know about the Devourers? Chin led him through the station's corridors. Through viewports, Kellery caught glimpses of the massive vessel docked outside the Indomitable. It dwarfed anything in the current Council fleet, its hull and angular, aggressive design that spoke of purpose rather than elegance. We've been monitoring Council frequencies since the quarantine began, Chin explained. We've watched your civilization grow, change, flourish, and we've watched the Devourers consume it. She stopped at a viewport overlooking Earth, humanity's cradle world, blue and green and alive. 1,200 years ago, you locked us away because you feared what we were. Warmongers, killers, too dangerous to be trusted, the Council believed. Council was right, Shin interrupted her. Voice quiet but firm, we are dangerous. Ambassador, that's exactly what we are. But here's what your ancestors never understood. We're not dangerous because we love violence. We're dangerous because we refuse to surrender ever. She gestured to the Indomitable. For 12 centuries we've prepared for this moment, not for revenge. We let go of that anger generations ago, but we knew eventually the galaxy would face something it couldn't, diplomacy its way past something that only understood one language. Chen's eyes met his. The Language of war, Kykes felt something stir in his chest, something he hadn't felt in years. Oh, what are you proposing, Captain? Your fleet is making its last stand at Axis Prime in 14 days. That's where the Devourers will break through to the core worlds. Chin pulled up tactical displays showing the impending battle. Every simulation shows the same result: total annihilation of Council forces within 18 hours of engagement. Our strategists agree. Kellex admitted quietly, they're wrong. Chen's finger traced new trajectories on the display. They're wrong because they don't account for the indomitable one. Ship Ambassador, give me one chance and I'll show the Devourers why humanity was quarantined for 1200 years. I'll show them why the galaxy feared us. One ship against thousands, Captain, that's suicide. Chin smiled, but there was something fierce in it perhaps, but you've never seen what humans can do when everything is on the line. You've never seen us when there's no retreat, no surrender, no hope left. She looked out at Earth again. We've had 1200 years to remember who we are, and we've had 1200 years to become something better. Controlled fury, calculated rage. Humans don't just fight, Ambassador, we fight smart, we fight dirty, and we fight until the last breath leaves our bodies. Kelry studied her face, seeing the absolute certainty there around them. Through the viewports he could see crew members preparing the indomitable, thousands of humans moving with practiced efficiency, loading weapons, running diagnostics, preparing for a battle they knew would likely kill them all. Why? Kellex finally asked. Why would you sacrifice yourself for a civilization that imprisoned you? Chin turned to him, and in her eyes he saw something profound, something that explained everything about humanity in a single moment. Because it's the right thing to do, she said simply, and because when darkness comes for the innocent, someone has to stand in its way. That's what we are, Ambassador. That's what we've always been. The stubborn idiots who refuse to let evil win no matter the cost. She extended her hand again. So what do you say? Will you let one human warship remind the galaxy what hope looks like? Kellex grasped her hand, feeling the weight of history, fear, and desperate necessity in that grip. The Council will have concerns. The Council can file a complaint after we save their species, Chin replied, but I need authorization to leave this quarantine zone, and I need it now. We have a long journey to Axis Prime. Ambassador Kellex made a decision that would either save the galaxy or doom what remained of it. You have it, Captain. May whatever gods you humans pray to watch over you. Chin's smile turned grim. We stopped praying centuries ago, Ambassador. We learned that if you want miracles, you have to make them yourself. She activated her communicator. All hands, this is the Captain. Plot course for Axis Prime. Maximum burn. We have a war to win. As the Indomitable powered up its massive engines, creating artificial auroras in Earth's atmosphere, Kelrich sent his report to the Council. He knew there would be outrage, fear, perhaps even attempts to rescind his authorization. But as he watched the human warship break orbit, its hull reflecting starlight like a drawn blade, he felt something he hadn't experienced in 5 long years of losing this war. He felt like victory might actually be possible. The galaxy was about to remember why it had feared humanity, and the Devourers were about to learn why that fear was justified. The fire that burns in human Hearts, the journey to Axis Prime took 9 days at maximum burn. Captain Sarah Chin spent every moment preparing her crew for what was coming. The Indomitable was designed for one purpose: to fight battles that could not be won through conventional means. Its weapon systems were experimental, its armor unconventional, its tactical doctrine written by 1,200 years of warriors who had nothing to do but perfect the art of war. On the bridge, Executive Officer Marcus Rodriguez reviewed the tactical data streaming in from Council forces. Captain, latest intelligence shows the Devourer fleet has 3,000 capital ships, with an estimated 50,000 support craft. Our forces at Axis Prime number 400. Ships most damaged from previous engagements. Chin nodded, studying the holographic display. The Devourers moved in perfect synchronization, a machine intelligence coordinating thousands of vessels with inhuman precision. Council forces, by contrast, showed the hesitation and fear of species facing extinction. Their formations were defensive, reactive. They were preparing to die slowly. What's the status of our special packages? Chin asked. All weapon systems operational. The Prometheus arrays are charged. The Harbinger missiles are prepped, and the crew. Rodriguez paused, a slight smile crossing his face. The crew is ready to remind the galaxy what humans do best. Through the viewport, Axis Prime appeared, a massive space station serving as the Council's last major defensive position. Beyond it, the Devourer fleet was forming up for its final assault. Their ships were grotesque amalgamations of consumed matter, organic and mechanical, fused into something that violated natural law. Each vessel pulsed with stolen energy, hungry for more. Chin activated the shipwide communicator. All hands. This is the captain. In a few hours, we're going to fight the biggest battle in galactic history. We're outnumbered, outgunned, and everyone expects us to fail. She paused. Good, we work best when the odds are impossible. Our ancestors fought tyrants, natural disasters, and their own worst instincts. They climbed out of caves to touch the stars. They split atoms and mapped genomes, and when the galaxy told them they were too dangerous to be free, they didn't break. They became stronger. She could feel the attention of every crew member focused on her words. Today, we show them why humans were feared, not because we're cruel, but because we're unstoppable. Not because we love war, but because we refuse to let evil win. They locked us away to protect themselves. Now we'll fight to protect them anyway, because that's what humans do. We protect those who can't protect themselves. We stand when others fall. We light fires in the darkness. Chen's voice grew harder, infused with steel. The Devourers think they're apex predators. They're about to meet something they've never encountered before, a species that evolved as both predator and prey, that learned to think and feel and never ever give up. So, check your stations, prepare your weapons, and remember, we're not just fighting for humanity today. We're fighting for every species that ever dared to dream of a better tomorrow. She cut the comm and turned to Rodriguez. Take us in full stealth until we're in optimal firing position. The Indomitable slid through space like a shadow. Its stealth systems, technology the Council had never developed, rendering it nearly invisible around them. The battle was beginning. Devourer ships surged forward in perfect waves while Council forces opened fire with their energy weapons. creating brilliant cascades of light. Against the darkness, Qin watched with a tactical eye. The Council ships were brave, but they fought with textbook strategies against an enemy that didn't follow any rules. Already 3 Council vessels were being torn apart, consumed by devourer ships that latched onto their hulls like mechanical parasites. Positions, Qin ordered crisply. Weapons, I want targeting solutions on their command node, that massive structure in the center of their formation. Captain, that's the Queen, said Lieutenant Park from Tactical Intelligence. Believes it coordinates the entire devourer fleet. It's also protected by at least 500 capital ships. Perfect. Chen's smile was predatory. We'll have their full attention. Helm, bring us about. Time to announce ourselves. The Indomitable dropped its stealth field directly in the heart of the devourer formation. For one frozen moment, every machine intelligence in the fleet registered the anomaly. Then Qin gave the order that would echo through galactic history: fire everything. The Prometheus arrays unleashed hell where Council weapons used focused energy beams. Human weapons embraced chaos. Rail guns accelerated tungsten rods to fractional light speed. Missile swarms deployed with hunter-killer AI that made devourer coordination look clumsy. Directed electromagnetic pulses scrambled electronic systems, and then came the harbingers, anti-atter warheads that turned a dozen devourer capital ships into expanding spheres of annihilation. The human battle doctrine was simple: overwhelming violence delivered with surgical precision, evasive pattern. Delta 7 Qin ordered as devour ships began returning fire. The Indomitable moved with impossible agility for a vessel its size. Its inertial dampeners allowing maneuvers that would turn Council crews into paste. Human bodies could withstand more G-forces than most species, and human engineers had built a ship that exploited that advantage. Mercilessly, devourer beams scored the Indomitable's armor, but the ship's layered defense system, reactive plating that exploded outward to disperse energy, self-healing composites that sealed breaches, and redundant systems scattered throughout the hull kept it fighting. Every hit the ship took taught its AI systems new lessons, adjusting defensive protocols in real time. They're adapting to our weapons, Rodriguez reported. Devour ships are redistributing power to forward shields. Then we adapt faster, Shin replied. Weapons switched to kinetic penetrators. Let's see their shield stop 300 tons of tungsten at 2C. The Indomitable became a whirlwind of destruction, carving through the devourer fleet like a blade through water. But Qin wasn't trying to destroy them all. That was impossible. She was doing something more dangerous. She was teaching the Council forces how to fight back. Open channel to all Council ships, she ordered. All frequencies channel open. Captain, Council forces, this is Captain Qin of the human warship Indomitable. You've been fighting defensively, trying to minimize casualties. That won't work against an enemy that doesn't fear death. Her voice carried across the battlefield, reaching hundreds of desperate crews. So let me show you a human war tactic: controlled aggression. Don't wait for them to come to you. Don't preserve your forces. Commit everything. Strike their weak points. Weapons clusters, propulsion systems, sensor arrays, make them pay for every meter they advance, she highlighted. Targets on the tactical network, sharing the Indomitable's advanced sensors with Council forces, the Devourers coordinate. Through quantum entanglement nodes, I'm marking them now, destroy those nodes. And their ships lose synchronization. They become predictable. On the displays, Chin watched as Council ships began to shift their tactics. Korath cruisers focused their beams on the quantum nodes she'd identified. Menturi frigates formed wolf packs, overwhelming individual Devourer vessels. Epsilon fighters started flying with more aggression, less fear. Hope was spreading through the Council fleet like wildfire, but the Devourers were adapting too, the Queen ship recognizing the Indomitable as the primary threat began advancing. It was massive. Kilometer of twisted metal and stolen technology powered by the consumed energy of 1,000 dead worlds around it. The remaining Devourer fleet formed a protective sphere. They're coming for us, Rodriguez said quietly. Good. Chen's fingers flew across her command console. All weapons concentrate fire on the Queen. Helm, plot and intercept. Course, we're going straight at them. Captain, Rodriguez's voice held a note of concern. That's suicide. Yes, I know. Chin looked at her crew, humans who had volunteered for this mission, knowing they might not return. She saw no fear in their eyes, only determination. But here's what the Devourers don't understand about humans. We don't need to survive to win, we just need to make sure they lose. The Indomitable surged forward directly toward the Queen ship. Devourer vessels swarmed it from all sides, but Chin had planned for this. The ship's point defense systems, thousands of autonomous turrets with reaction times measured in nanoseconds, created a sphere of destruction around the vessel. Anything that got close enough to threaten the hull was instantly shredded, but there were too many. Devourer ships sacrificed themselves by the dozens, wearing down the Indomitable's defenses through sheer attrition. Alarms blared as hull breaches opened on decks 7 through 12. Casualty reports scrolled across Chen's display, each one a name she knew, a person she trained with. The price of war paid in human blood. Distance to Queen ship 5,000 km, Park reported. 4,000, 3,000, Captain, we're not going to make it, Rodriguez said. We don't have enough firepower to punch through her shields. Chin smiled. Who said anything about firepower? She activated a rarely used system. Engineering. This is the captain. Initiate protocol. Sampson in the engineering bay. Chief Engineer Williams received the order she'd hoped would never come. Protocol. Sampson, catastrophic overload of the ship's fusion reactors, turning the Indomitable itself into a weapon. Ship-sized bomb with a yield measured in gigatons. Understood, Captain Williams replied steadily. Removing reactor safeties. You'll have 10 minutes before cascade becomes irreversible. Chin opened a channel to Ambassador Kellix, who she knew was watching from Axis Prime. Ambassador, get all Council forces at least 20,000 km from the Queen ship. You have 8 minutes. Captain, you can't. Kellix's voice was anguished. The Queen coordinates their entire fleet. Chin interrupted. Without it, they're just individual ships, and you can handle individual ships, but it has to be destroyed, and we're the only weapon powerful enough to do it. She looked out at the approaching Queen ship, its grotesque hole filling the viewport. 8 minutes, Ambassador, make them count. Around the battlefield, Council ships began retreating, some captains understanding immediately, others confused until Kelix's desperate orders reached them. They pulled back, leaving the Indomitable alone against the Devourer Queen, but they didn't abandon humanity. A core battle cruiser, badly damaged and venting atmosphere, turned toward the Devourer lines. Its captain's voice crackled over the open channel. Humanity taught us to fight with honor. Let us die with honor. The battle cruiser accelerated toward a cluster of Devourer ships, its remaining weapons firing until the very end. It exploded in a brilliant flash, taking a dozen enemy vessels with it. Others followed, ships that were too damaged to retreat, crews that refused to let humanity stand alone. They bought time with their lives, drawing Devourer fire away from the Indomitable. 2,000 km Park announced, his voice steady despite knowing what was coming. 1,000 stood from her command chair, looking at each bridge crew member in turn. It's been an honor serving with you. Tell Earth's story. Tell them we didn't fail. Rodriguez smiled through tears. Captain, we're transmitting everything, every sensor reading, every tactical decision. The Council is recording it all. They'll learn, they'll remember. 500 km. Queenship charging weapons. Impact in 30 seconds. The Devourer Queen's weapons unleashed, and the Indomitable shuddered. Under the assault, sections of the hull vaporized, the lights flickered. But the ship kept going, driven forward by its final orders and the will of a crew that refused to stop. Reactors reaching cascade point. Engineering reported 10 seconds to irreversible overload. Chin sat back down, her hands steady on the armrest of her command chair. She thought of Earth, of humanity's long exile, of 1,200 years of preparation for this single moment. She thought of every human who had ever lived, fought, struggled, and dreamed of a better universe for humanity. She said quietly, for the galaxy. Rodriguez added, the Indomitable struck the Queen ship's shields at full velocity. For one frozen instant, nothing happened. Then the fusion reactors achieved cascade, and a miniature star was born in the heart of the Devourer fleet. The explosion was visible from Axis Prime, a sphere of expanding energy that consumed the Queen ship, its protective fleet, and the Indomitable in a flash of incandescent fury. When the energy dissipated, there was nothing left but debris and residual radiation. On Axis Prime, Ambassador Kelix watched in stunned silence. Around him, Council officers were shouting reports, but he couldn't hear them over the roaring in his ears. Humanity's ship was gone. Captain Chin was gone. All of them gone, but the battlefield had changed without the Queen's coordination. The Devourer fleet faltered. Ships that had moved with perfect synchronization now drifted or collided with each other. Their attacks became random, uncoordinated. They were still dangerous, but they were no longer unstoppable. All ships, Kelix heard himself saying, his voice breaking. Press the attack. Don't let their sacrifice be in vain. The Council fleet surged forward with new ferocity. They fought with human tactics now. Aggressive, relentless, accepting casualties in exchange for victory. Ship after ship fell on both sides, but for the first time in 5 years, the Council was winning. The battle lasted another 6 hours. When the last Devourer ship was destroyed, Crix found himself standing alone in the observation bay, staring at the debris field where the Indomitable had made its final stand. 3 months later, the Galactic Council met in a rebuilt chamber. Every surviving species had sent representatives, the devourer. Threat had been eliminated. Without their queen, the remaining machine, fleets had been hunted down across the galaxy. High Counselor Wren stood before the assembly, her aged voice carrying to every corner. Today we lift the quarantine on humanity. Today we acknowledge the greatest debt our civilization has ever owed, one human ship. 3,000 human souls saved billions of lives across hundreds of worlds. She paused, letting the weight of those words settle. We exiled humanity because we feared their capacity for violence. We were right to fear it, but we were wrong about what that capacity meant. Humans aren't monsters, they're the ones willing to become monsters to protect others. They're the ones who carry the burden of violence so others don't have to. Ambassador Kellix approached the podium, his voice hoarse. I knew Captain Sarah Chen for only 9 days. In that time, she taught me more about courage, sacrifice, and honor than I learned in my entire life before meeting her. Humanity doesn't need our permission to rejoin the galaxy. The galaxy needs their presence to be complete. The vote to welcome humanity back was unanimous. 6 months later, ships from Earth began arriving at Council space stations, not warships but colony vessels, trade ships, science expeditions. Humanity rejoined the galactic community, not as conquerors but as partners. They brought their military expertise, yes, but also their art, music, literature, and philosophy. And in every council military academy, officers studied the Battle of Axis Prime. They learned the tactics, the strategies, the doctrine of controlled aggression. They studied Captain Chen's decision, her crew's sacrifice, the human capacity to achieve the impossible. But most importantly, they learned the lesson that humanity had proven with their blood, that civilizations are defined not by their capacity for violence but by their willingness to stand against darkness, no matter the cost. On Earth, in a memorial garden overlooking the ocean, a monument was erected. It bore 3,000 names, every crew member of the Indomitable. Beneath the names, a simple inscription. They taught the galaxy to hope. They showed the universe what humanity means. They died so others could live. May we prove worthy of their sacrifice. And across the galaxy, on hundreds of worlds, whenever someone spoke of that desperate battle, they always ended with the same phrase, a reminder and a promise. Humanity stands eternal. The end.